Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Jeremy Schumacher. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm the Jer in Wellness with Jer. Thanks for stopping by and checking out the channel. Today, do a song review, a Milwaukee band. Hey, that's where I'm from. We're going to do a song by Snag. It's a Screamo song. I don't know what we're doing anymore. Snag is a Screamo band from Milwaukee. Snag is really great some of the time. Not because of their music quality, because I can't listen to Screamo all the time. I listen to like death metal from other countries that isn't sung in English. So it's not that the vibe is wrong for me all the time. It's my musical what I like to listen to ebbs and flows and comes in waves. And so there's a time where I listen to a lot of Snag because their earnest angst about environmental issues is pretty much like a strong ethic of mine. They have a release that was titled Invasive Species, Cop City. Like, yeah, I'm here for that, right? So I like always what they're doing and why they're doing it. And the delivery of Screamo is not always for me. I wasn't enough of like, I was a weird kid in a lot of ways, but like goth Screamo wasn't my thing and is only now sometimes my thing. But I like to put some shine on some local stuff because I'm from Milwaukee. Go Brewers. And you know, yeah, the climate crisis is a real problem. I think listening to Snag again because of like the proposed AI power center they want to put in Manitowoc, which is a bit north of Milwaukee. Because, you know, like we need all this water to cool our AI systems that we didn't ask to be used that are now the default everywhere. And, you know, what better water source to deplete than our Great Lakes is what the tech bro thinks. And so, you know, that's a problem. Don't do that. It would be awesome if we don't. We almost surely will, because the Manitowoc City Council is not going to stand up to $1 billion. We won't be alive to see the collapse, I think, is what people think. And then like tech bros are like, bet. Let's see if we can just speed run the collapse. I don't know. Anyway, right. That's where my brain goes, and which is why we're going to do a song by Snag called The Only Rational Response. You know, and I'm calling an audible on myself while I'm recording. Let's... Ooh, I can't do that. Let's do this. This is terrible. I'm changing which screen I'm sharing. Horror of horrors for people who know, right? Oh, now I just can't even see what's playing. I can't see what you guys can see. This is terrible. Look, there we are. Just to spotlight Snag's album artwork. Incredible. Look at this run, this 3-album run they have of artwork. Death Doula, self-titled album, Snag, and split with Swallow's Nest. It's gorgeous. Gorgeous artwork. That's not where the song is, though. So, you know, now I got to pull that up. Scintillating. I'm not algorithm friendly to begin with, and then I do shit like this, and I'm really not algorithm friendly. Where are we? Found I have to make sure you can hear the song. Okay. You can't see the album artwork so well in this setup. That's why I needed to show you, because I love the Zombie Deer cover of their self-titled release. So this is off of their self-titled album, Snag. Came out in 2019, and we are going to listen to The Only Rational Response.
If humankind can't overcome its immediate interest enough to ensure its own survival, then you're right. The only rational response is despair.
Hey, let's chat for a sec. Um, yeah, honestly, I don't have a ton to add here because the lyricism's pretty tight, and everything they say, I am agreeing with. Um, Other than the opening intro, which I think is catchy. I don't know where bands get that from. A lot of bands do that. It's fine. You know, it's fine. I don't know what that line is from. I'm assuming it's from some media. Um, a band that I this is where I'm just recording myself in real time being ADHD. Um, I love pro wrestling. Brody King is a pro wrestler. He's very cool across the board. If you're like me, disappointed at CM Punk selling out, just go follow Brody King. He's hardcore and straight edge, and wears an Abolish Ice shirt to the ring because he's awesome. Anyway, he's also in a straight edge hardcore band um, called God's Hate. And again, not always what I'm into. I like metal, but some of the more like symphonic metal. I like death metal. I like gloom metal. Whatever. I have ADHD. I'm all over the place. Hardcore is hit or miss for me, in the same way that screamo is. Um, but God's Hate does this, and like I couldn't place it until I watched True Detective, which was years after True Detective was popular, and then I was like, "Hey, that's from a song I know." So again, I just assume this is from some sort of media that maybe is ubiquitous that everybody else has seen. And because I never, very rarely watch things when they are popular and trendy, I don't know what it's from. I didn't find anything when I just did the quick Google search of where it's from. Um, I want to break down every border. I want to open every cage in case you don't understand Screamo. I want to pull down every statue and plant roses in their place. Yeah. And like that opening is if humankind, geez, ads are popping up everywhere. If humankind can't overcome its immediate interest enough to ensure its own survival, then the only rational response is despair. And like, I'm in the business of change, changing people, changing systems at a micro level, not the macro. That is what keeps me up at night. Um, but I do find myself in a very sort of, I think, level-headed, non-suicidal um, headspace, being like, yeah, but like when if humanity eventually ends, like whatever animals are left, and certainly the mushrooms will still be around, and like that's cool. Um, and as somebody who's raised like deeply evangelical and like taught scary things about hell and like the afterlife, and never really found much comfort in that idea of that afterlife they were trying to sell, and really focused on the hell part. The idea that like it goes on without us is sort of comforting. Maria Bamford, who's a comic I love, you're getting all these bonus reviews that just keeps happening in my videos. It's not intentional. I just have ADHD. Um, Talks about like how atheism is comforting for her because she doesn't want to be in trouble at the end of her life, and she also doesn't want to be like responsible for anyone else. And like, yeah, I don't know, it's not that sentiment exactly for me, but like the idea that like mushrooms will still be here, and that's lovely, um, is different than despair. I think it's slightly nihilistic, but also like pro mushroom. If you're not on board for mushrooms being awesome and being okay with them being what rules the world, engage with mushrooms however you see fit, safely. But honestly, safely, there are dangerous mushrooms, but like that's bonus review. This has come up in like the last 4 videos I'm doing because I don't have the attention span to read, and I have little kids, so I really don't have time to read like I would like. But I'm reading Forest Euphoria, which is a lovely book and very grounding and hopeful and about religious trauma. It's all my things. And yeah, it really highlights how like humans have had an issue with mushrooms that like our risk assessment around mushrooms has always been incorrect. Um, some of them will kill you, but most of them won't. But we pretend touching any of them is gross and dirty. I like mushrooms. I like eating them. I like people who are able to engage with them medicinally. I'll say, as somebody who's licensed in a state where that is not legal. Um, what is there's a lovely Netflix documentary about how mushrooms connect to all living things. It's very like beautiful, you know. So if you need to feel like it's okay that mushrooms will be here long after we're gone, and like that's actually really lovely, find a mushroom to connect with. My old therapist, who was a lovely human and helped me a lot, often told me to go talk to trees, and I was always very skeptical of this concept. Not because I'm unaware that trees can talk. I was so skeptical that I did not know their language. I don't think humanity has earned that, or what we maybe did know we've lost, and that seems like a natural consequence. So maybe the only rational response is not despair, but to trust the natural consequence. But yeah, I mean, it would be lovely to be like, hey, this imaginary line that we don't let buffaloes cross because the buffaloes are supposed to care what the humans think. Don't do that. Tiny extra bonus review and plug for the documentary Singing the Buffalo Back. It's a lovely documentary about buffaloes and indigenous tribes working really hard to save them and bring them back. And it's horrible and trauma filled and also very hopeful and lovely. So again, I guess I'm sort of getting at like, I love the message of the song and the intro of despair is like, yeah, that's sort of not where we land though. Like, right, we could just ignore arbitrary boundaries that don't mean anything and be like, oh shit, the world is on fire. Let's organize our shit. We have enough food to feed everyone. Let us make sure we have water to hydrate everyone in the future. See if we can like, make it better. Or I guess build billion-dollar AI centers that will deplete us of all our natural resources in very short order for a thing that none of us really asked for. I get that people use AI and that's why like it's a thing, but again, it's just turned on as a default in all the things now. And I try not to be like old man shouting at the clouds, but like again, I don't want AI search results. I don't want AI suggestions on how to word things. I don't know. Could we stop? Could we plant roses and trees? I don't know. Could we just like let Earth take care of all of its species? Us being one of them? Can we stop hindering that? That's the song. Okay, there's more, and I have lyrics up because even as somebody who listens to metal, I have auditory processing things, which is a thing I maybe have never said on camera before. I've said I'm neurodivergent, and so I like to see the lyrics on screen. But even listening to metal, even listening to alternative rock, sometimes I listen to something a lot of times, and I have no idea what words are being spoken. So during some of the breakdowns here, I lose it. So we'll go over that together. But let's listen to it first.
Trying to keep my body clean.
It's hard for me to stop there because I know the next song on the album is like a very sort of, man, I don't know music, so drop down in the comments and correct me if you're a musical person, because I like to learn things. It's not that I am opposed to learning the correct terms, but it's like very sort of like 90s lo-fi, um, where sometimes in like really heavy albums or like hip hop albums, uh, Brian Eno's and Infinity Knives did this, have some very like 90s lo-fi on their albums. A City Drowned in God's Black Tears album is great. Came out earlier this year. I've done a review of one of their songs. Um, and they have like a boat water song, uh, Two-Headed Buffalo. It's just like 90s lo-fi at the end of this like very awesome hip hop album. Um, but yeah, there's a really lovely 90s lo-fi song that follows this, and then a song called Colony Collapse that's about us killing bees with pesticides and how it's actually like really terrible. It's really terrible for us as humans, as species, to be killing the bees, and also like the way that we've gone about it is it's just torturing a species that did nothing but pollinate our crops. It's like again, I mean, we know this as for metal as a genre in psych world because it's been studied to say that folks who listen to metal regularly have better mental health overall because metal is a space not only to deal with heavy topics like death, with anger, with injustice, but also metalheads often will engage in some form of somatic practice, whether they realize that's what they're doing or not, in that getting those the anxiety, the tension, the stress we feel in our systems, in our bodies, in our nervous system, that state of arousal we get into when confronted with a threat, whether existential or right in front of us, we can do something with it. So music that is a bit more aggressive, not just in content, but also musical style, can be really helpful for us. And so I find while screamo is not always my thing, oftentimes it is exactly what I'm craving and what my system really sort of needs to crank the music up and headbang a little bit. Never going to see me try and stay on beat in a video. One, because I can't, and there's a slight delay. So what is already really bad and embarrassing for me to do in public gets worse. So, you know, this is I was just at a concert recently that I loved, and I didn't headbang there either. So, that only happens when no one's around or when I'm driving because I like to listen to my music really loud when I'm driving. It's a very grounding practice for me. And again, as a neurodivergent person, like often the wave of noise is lovely for my brain. A wall of sound makes my brain really happy, and something like loudness and something like wind from my windows being open, other stuff is like, again, my brain mellows out when I hit a certain level of stimulation. I'm not mellow at zero, it's a lot. And the song sort of gets into this. Look at that, I'm winking because what a smooth transition back onto topic. I talked myself into being relevant again. um I've been trying to keep my body healthy, and that's sort of the background sounds. Where did we go wrong? The Industrial Revolution. Um, from a climate perspective, I would argue. Other people have probably better, more nuanced takes than that. That's just off the top of my head. Seems like an obvious one, really, truly. Um, where do we go wrong as humanity? Oof. I've been trying to keep my body healthy. Awesome, great, love it. I've been trying to keep my mind empty. So now this is an interesting concept as a mental health professional because I think it's a misunderstanding. It's the whitewashing of spiritual practices in other countries, if I may be so bold as to suggest that like mindfulness and DBT skills, which I think super highly of. I have one workbook in my office, and it is a DBT workbook because I love the DBT skills. They're based in good science. They're grounded and backed by a ton of research. They work really well for most people. And yeah, and there are parts that probably didn't translate well of basically, I'm grossly oversimplifying here. Just clarifying here. It's a YouTube video, not a dissertation. But in taking Western philosophies and taking a Western approach, sort of Eastern philosophies, and taking what is sort of Buddhist spiritual practice and making it into a mindfulness practice from a science perspective, like in whitewashing some of Buddhism, we maybe lost some things, right? And so the idea of like an empty mind as a meditative state, I think is maybe some people can do it, and maybe there are some spirituality paths that recommend it. And I don't, as a neurodivergent person, find that to be accessible at all. My mind's never empty, and it's not from lack of trying or practicing. Again, my mind mellows out at a certain point of a lot of stimulation. My brain is happiest with a lot going on. That's why we give people with ADHD little bits of methamphetamine. Again, gross oversimplification. It's not meth. It is an amphetamine, though. For stimulant medication. I've only had one Red Bull today. It's fine. So yeah, I don't know. I don't find the mind empty to be a very particularly useful concept. I find a mind that is able to let things come and go. That is, it's not devoid of things. It's just not locked into anything. We can visit places in our brain, but we're not moving in. We're not living anywhere. So thoughts, they come and go. They happen to us. We experience them, but we're just letting them come and go. And I find meditation to only really be a successful practice. Not everybody needs to do it like I do, but I've had walking meditations, often in the woods, to be useful. I find generally any physical movement, um, whether that's sort of a yoga practice or that's for me really much more of like a functional movement practice. It's staving off old age and bad joints more than I'm particularly practiced at yoga. With music on, again, like I'm stimulating my senses enough so that my brain can mellow out. So I've been trying to keep my mind empty. Great, perhaps misguided, because I don't want to think about the future. It's not my responsibility. We have the "Where Did We Go Wrong" playing sort of in the background in all of those lines. Um, and this song probably pops into my mind because some other conversations I've had with other climate aware psychologists recently. Just trying to balance, and I did a podcast episode about Taylor Swift, so this has been on my mind a lot. Trying to balance people, individuals who are doing things that I might not agree with or might not think are good or healthy or sustainable, and when really they've been captured in those behaviors by an unhealthy system. And so I'm not perturbed by Taylor Swift fans, although as a human, I do question their taste in music. I'm doing a Snag review. Like, people can question my taste in music. It is opinion based. And you know, those fans might participate in capitalism, and maybe we could reflect on that. It's the whole point of the podcast. If you want to hear my thoughts on that, go listen to Your Therapist Needs Therapy. But also, like, that's not who's responsible for the billionaire ruling class. Like, the billionaires need to be held accountable because they need to redistribute their wealth because they are evil, and they won't because they're evil, right? But like, climate change, I should recycle everything I can recycle, even though we know by and large it is corporations that are polluting at a really high level. And like, yeah, I mean, COVID was bad. Millions of people died, right? Like, bad, 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 handled very poorly. And one of the things that happened is like we sort of shut down like doing anything for like a month ish to various degrees. And it's like, hey, that helped the environment a lot. What if we just like took a month off every year? It would be lovely, right? And really change a lot. And so again, like, that balance between personal responsibility of a systemic problem, like the idea of a revolutionary, you taking your recycling out, is values aligned and important, because if nobody recycled, that would be a problem. And you recycling doesn't solve the climate collapse as it is unfolding, right? And so this idea of it's not my responsibility is like accurate, right? And that doesn't mean that burying our heads in the sand and again, like, I think landing at despair doesn't help, right? We can't all give up. Like, we do need people who are working. We do need to push for accountability, even when accountability comes through collective action and not through individual action. And so that is where the individual action matters because it turns into collective action. Um, where did we go wrong? It's not where did I go wrong? Where did I cause climate collapse? It's where did we go wrong? And so it needs to be we making the adjustment, right? We, a collective, as a society on a major level. And, that'll happen at some point, hopefully before we drain the Great Lakes to cool off AI, supercomputers. Just a thought. This is just a thought. And then the next verse is similar. I don't want to have another breakdown. I don't want to have another freak out. Is sort of the lines that come in and trying to keep my body healthy, trying to keep my mind empty because I don't want to think about the future. It's not my responsibility. And so again, like small switch up in the lyrics there. Right, like there's this screaming into the void that screamo really works well for here of like I can't change this individually. It was we, the collective, we went wrong as a society a long time ago. And so it's not my responsibility. I can't fix it. I didn't create the problem and I care about the problem deeply, right? If I could go around and tear things down and plant roses in their place, I would. I would be put in jail because property is more important than people in our modern society. And like that's bad and wrong and super unhealthy. And so when we spend too much time here, we freak out. We have a breakdown, and that's not healthy either, right? And so there's this balance of like, I want to scream, I need to take some action, I need to do something, and the things I want to do, the things I want to change, the things I want to fix aren't up to me. And so, that's really good songwriting for a 2-minute song. It's delivered in a screamo way, which like may or may not be your cup of tea. That's cool. Again, like I brought up hardcore bands because like that sentiment is there. A lot of the bands I listen to, I talked about Tune Yards recently because I saw them in concert. Talk about being anti-fascist and holding white people holding other white people accountable, right? Like these are important things wherever you're getting your music or developing it. If you're listening to, again, a vinyl sold at Target by a billionaire, and like I'm picking on Taylor Swift because his new album came out and it just seems to be a really terrible album, but certainly not the only artist who's a billionaire. There's not a lot of them though. Again, like the difference between like Kendrick Lamar being a millionaire, I saw it recently at like $140 million is his worth, and Jay-Z is 4 point some billion. Like, yeah, that's scaled differently, right? That's a problem. Again, class consciousness is not your doctor who lives in the fancy part of town and makes 6 figures. It is again someone who is thousands of times wealthier than that to a point that you can't imagine because our brains are bad at big numbers. And so yeah, like capitalism is definitely a part of climate change, and so is fascism, right? Like, and capitalism is never going to stand up to fascism, and fascism is about control and the illusion of control, truly. And we don't control the environment. We don't own land, right? That's silly. And that's like this, I don't know, this very sad, depressed little man who is driving his like jacked up truck that everyone thinks is really cringe and embarrassing. It just says, hey, I'm compensating for a number of things. Or the sad little men who are running fascism, like they're not happy or well adjusted. And so we should not listen to them because they're not doing things that are healthy. Anyway, we don't own land. We're part of a larger community on this rock that's spinning through space at a very fast rate and will eventually be burned out by the sun in the future, in the far away future, in a future we can't comprehend yet because it's so far away. And also that we're pretty sure will happen at a specific time because we can figure out when the sun will get too hot for us. We're trying to burn through our atmosphere, so it's too hot for us specifically, but Earth will continue to exist. And again, probably mushrooms. So that's fun. I just sort of keep landing on, so that's fun. It's like Obviously not. I mean, it's fun that mushrooms will exist. Sometimes, as therapists, we don't have anything better to say. I don't. I try not to say it is what it is. But go listen to Snag. Broaden your horizons, even if you're not like into screamo. They have some songs that are less screamo. Again, they have some real lo-fi songs. That's great. It's fun. That's what I was going to say again. Snag. They have like a show coming up, or it just happened. I might have missed it. I'm disorganized. But like they're still around. They are releasing music and they play local events, and sometimes it's like a local small coffee shop, which is a great place to see live music. Like go see a band when they're still small and they're local and they're in your area. Support local art is also part of resistance, and like build community. Again, collective action. Find musical artists who are saying shit that you agree with, whether the delivery is poppy techno sounding cool shit, or it's screamo, or it's punk, or it's hardcore, or it's death metal, or it's the one country artist who's trying to be like, hey, I think ice is bad, and is gonna not be a country artist any longer because whoops, lost track of your audience there, guy. But yeah, because that's community, right? Like artists making art that makes you feel something and connects to you, ethics and values, not just as it elicited an emotional response, but also its values align. It's lovely. Those are your people. Support them. Connect with them. Yeah, that's what I got. That album by Snag is really good. Their other stuff is good too. That happens to be the album I like the best. That's not really relevant. I'm super biased by the artwork, so. But yeah, Death Doula is really great too. That was the album that came out after that. That was the Snappy Turtle cover. Just, the artwork is really great. And again, like, yeah, they had a release about Cop City. Like, again, just, these are things that I talk about in other places. I think I talked about Cop City when I was doing Prison Song by System of a Down. So it's there and it's relevant. And like, again, people being like, hey, this is bad because they tore down a forest to make I don't need to do the whole thing. This is a long enough video. But Cop City was bad and relevant to something like climate change because they tore down a forest in order to build a fake American city so that they could practice fascism in American cities. So, when people were upset about that a while ago, and then now fascism is happening in American cities. It's good to listen to people who are paying attention, I guess. I was gonna say stay woke, y'all, but I don't know. This isn't as hard of a concept as it needs to be. Let's stop letting sad little men run things. Let's break down all the borders, tear down statues, plant roses. That is a reasonable, rational response. Okay. And in all of this, as I always say, take care of yourself, take care of somebody else. Peace.